Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take source material, maybe articles, research, notes you've gathered, and really plunge in to find those crucial nuggets of knowledge. Think of it as your shortcut to being properly informed without getting totally lost in all the details. Today, we're tackling digital transformation, and we're looking at it through the, pretty fascinating lens of procurement. We've got a detailed source doc to guide us. It's a keynote script focused on strategic digital transformation from the procurement team. And it lays out a really structured approach, offering some quite practical insights. So our mission here in this deep dive is to cut through the complexity. We want to pull out the core ideas from this script, really understand the key steps for transforming to procurement digitally. Get a handle on the potential challenges you might run into, and crucially, see how this, seemingly specialized topic actually connects to the much bigger picture of business transformation. And why should you care about procurement transformation? Well, because, as the source makes really clear, it's absolutely not just about buying stuff anymore. It's about elevating procurement, making it a true strategic partner that drives serious value across the whole organization. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. The source kicks things off by going right to the heart of it, asking that fundamental question. What is digital transformation, really? Because it's definitely more than just, buying some new software.
That's exactly right. And it's crucial to get this clear from the outset. The source is very explicit. Digital transformation, DX, it isn't simply about implementing digital tools. It defines DX as the comprehensive integration of digital technology into all areas of a business. It's really about fundamentally changing how an organization operates and, critically, how it delivers value to its customers or stakeholders.
Right. And here's where I found it gets really interesting. The source heavily emphasizes this isn't just a tech thing. There's a massive cultural shift involved. So what does that cultural evolution actually look like?
Well, it means organizations need to constantly challenge their own status quo. They need to get comfortable with experimenting, trying new things, and, yes, even getting comfortable with failure sometimes. It's less like a single project with an end date and much more a continuous process, an evolution. And to really grasp this holistically, the source breaks DX down into 5 interconnected dimensions. You kind of need to look at all of them together.
Okay, 5 dimensions. Let's walk through those. What's the first piece you absolutely need to get right?
Strategy and vision. That's number 1. The source is clear. Any transformation has to be anchored in a clear strategic vision, and it must be orchestrated across the whole company. You can't have these little digital pockets working in isolation. It needs top-down connection.
Okay, so strategy first, foundational. What's dimension 2?
Process redesign. This is about looking hard at how value is currently delivered and then, reimagining those workflows. It's about using digital capabilities to strip out inefficiencies and fundamentally redesign how work gets done.
Got it. Redesigning the how. What about the who? Who does the work?
That leads straight into the 3rd dimension, people and capabilities. You absolutely have to equip your teams, give them the right skills, foster the right digital mindsets, and even define new roles that are needed for this new digital world.
And then obviously you need the tools themselves. That's technology enablement, dimension 4, right?
Precisely. This dimension is about selecting and integrating the right technologies. And right is the key word there. Not just grabbing the latest shiny object, but choosing tech that genuinely enables agility and improves performance in line with that strategy we talked about.
Okay. And wrapping it all together, making it stick.
That's governance and change management, the 5th dimension. You need structure. You need KPIs to measure progress, and you absolutely need a solid change management strategy to guide people through the transformation journey and manage it effectively. The source has a quote that ties these 5 together really nicely. It says, "Digital transformation is a continuous evolution, not a one-time upgrade. It is where strategy meets technology, enabled by people and sustained by leadership." It just perfectly shows how interdependent all these pieces are.
Right, that makes sense. Strategy, process, people, tech, governance, all linked. Okay, so that's the foundational understanding of DX, but how do you actually do it? Specifically thinking about procurement now, the source gives a very practical 5-step plan for that.
Yes, this is the roadmap, the how-to. And like any journey, it starts with understanding exactly where you are right now.
Which brings us to step 1. Assess readiness. What does that actually involve for a procurement team?
So the source talks about starting with a structured self-assessment. Think of it like a maturity test. It evaluates your current state across those dimensions we just covered: people, processes, tech, data, governance, but specifically focused on procurement areas. Things like how automated is your sourcing? How good are your spend analytics? What about supplier collaboration platforms, contract management, category management capabilities? It also digs into, data quality, how well people are actually using the tools you already have, how procurement systems talk to finance or the ERP, and even how digitally engaged your suppliers are.
So the main goal here is just getting a really clear, honest snapshot of the starting point. No sugarcoating.
Absolutely. You need that fact-based baseline. It's essential for prioritizing, for figuring out which initiatives will give you the biggest bang for your buck, and really importantly, for justifying the investment you're going to need later on.
Does the source give a concrete example of this assessment step?
It does. It mentions a telecom operator in the GCC region. They started out very manual, very decentralized procurement. They did this kind of assessment, found low system adoption, pinpointed clear automation opportunities, and that assessment literally became the foundation for their whole digital roadmap. Oh, and the source has a useful toolkit tip here. Use heat maps. Visualizing those capability gaps on a heat map can be really effective for communication.
Okay, heat map. Good tip. Right, you've assessed where you are. What's the next vital step? According to the source, you absolutely must build a business case. Step 2.
Yes, you can't just walk into the CFO's office and say, hey, we need new tech, it'll save money. It doesn't work like that. You have to articulate the value proposition really clearly and, crucially, link it to the metrics that the business leadership actually cares about.
So how does the source suggest quantifying that value, specifically for procurement? It's not just cost savings, is it?
No, definitely not just cost savings. You need to think broader. Quantify operational gains, like reducing cycle times, how long it takes to source something, or process an invoice. Look at compliance improvements, how digital tools can help mitigate supplier risk, or prevent contract leakage that's, lost value because contracts aren't managed well. And this is really key. The source stresses you must link procurement digitization to enterprise-level KPIs. We're talking things like improving overall EBITDA, optimizing working capital, maybe hitting specific ESG targets. You also need to highlight risk reduction and how automation frees up your valuable procurement team to do more strategic work instead of just pushing paper.
Got it. So the argument isn't just digital helps procurement run better. It's more like digital procurement helps the entire business achieve its strategic goals.
Exactly that. The ultimate goal is securing that executive buy-in, and you do that by clearly showing how digital procurement adds real enterprise value, not just, functional efficiency.
And the source provides a great illustration of this with a government entity example. Right?
Yeah, that's a strong one. They started with a tough baseline, a 37-day average sourcing cycle, which is long, and 25% maverick spend, that's spending happening outside approved channels. Huge leakage. Their business case projected they could achieve a 40% cycle time improvement and save about $12 million a year. But crucially, they also framed the compliance benefits and the improved supplier visibility in the context of a larger national strategic vision, like Vision 2030 in that region. That broader strategic alignment is incredibly powerful for getting executives on board.
Okay, makes sense. So you know where you are, you've got a compelling reason why you need to transform. Step 3 is define the roadmap. How do you actually plan the rollout itself?
Right, this step is all about the how. Deciding on your approach, are you going to be agile, iterative, or follow a more structured, phased plan?
And what dictates that choice? Agile versus structured.
Well, the source suggests it depends on a few things. The organization's culture, its existing digital capabilities, and frankly, the urgency of the change needed. Agile is generally better for experimenting. Maybe you're piloting new tech like AI for spend analysis, or trying out chatbots for supplier queries, or running ERFX pilots just within one category or business unit. A structured approach is usually necessary for the bigger, more complex changes. Things like implementing a full ERP module or rolling out a comprehensive source-to-pay system across the entire global organization. The source also gives some good advice here. Prioritize quick wins early on. Things like automating low-value purchase orders or implementing guided buying systems to steer users towards preferred suppliers get some value delivered fast. Then you can tackle the deeper integrations like sophisticated contract intelligence or predictive risk analytics. Oh, and absolutely critical at this stage, ensure stakeholder alignment. You need IT, finance, and the various business units all bought into the roadmap. No silos.
Right. So the goal is sort of delivering value early and often. building momentum while making sure everything still fits the bigger strategic picture.
That's exactly it. Keep the momentum going.
The source mentions a bank deploying CLM contract lifecycle management that used a structured approach. How did that work out for them?
Yes, they needed to centralize their whole contracting process, which was fragmented. They opted for that structured, phased rollout. They started with standardizing all their contract templates first, get the foundation right. Then they implemented the approval workflows. And finally, they added the more advanced features like automated clause intelligence. This deliberate step-by-step sequence helped them slash their contract cycle time from 45 days down to just 18 days. Pretty significant. And a toolkit tip mentioned here is using change impact maps, visually mapping out how the changes will affect different roles and processes. Helps anticipate issues.
Okay, change impact maps. Got it. So you've assessed, you've made the case, you have a plan. Now comes step 4, mobilize. This sounds like where the rubber really meets the road, especially on the people side of things.
It absolutely is. This phase is explicitly focused on getting the organization, and especially the people within procurement, ready for and, importantly, on board with the changes coming. It's not just about deploying the tech. It's about preparing the users to embrace it.
So what does mobilization typically involve, based on the source?
Well, it often starts with setting up a dedicated PMO, a project management office, specifically for the procurement digital transformation, just to coordinate everything. Then you often see the formation of cross-functional squads or teams. These focus on tackling specific problem areas identified back in the assessment, maybe improving indirect spend visibility or standardizing contract language globally. A huge part of this, naturally, is launching targeted training programs. You've got to close those skills gaps we talked about. And this needs to include dedicated change management support to actively address concerns and reduce resistance. The source also specifically mentions identifying and empowering digital champions from within the procurement team. These are individuals who get extra training, become advocates, and can then coach their peers on using the new tools and processes day to day. Peer influence is powerful.
So the real aim here is making sure the transformation actually sticks, that it's sustainable, that people genuinely use the tools, and that it aligns with the company's broader digital goals.
Precisely. User adoption is everything. If people don't use it, it doesn't matter how great the tech is.
There's a really good example of this mobilization piece with a multinational FMCG company, fast-moving consumer goods, focused on the training aspect.
Yes. That case study is quite telling. They had implemented an e-sourcing tool, but it was seriously underutilized. People weren't using it. So they tackled this directly. They built a dedicated digital procurement academy. It had specific training tracks tailored to different roles. And they formally certified internal staff as those champions we mentioned. That really focused effort on capability building led to an impressive 80% adoption rate for the tool in just 3 months. Huge turnaround. And the toolkit tip here. The source suggests things like gamification, making learning fun, and offering certifications can really boost engagement and knowledge retention in these training programs.
Makes sense. Okay, and finally, the last step in this 5-step process. Step 5, scale and sustain. Because as you said earlier, this isn't a one-and-done project, right? It has to keep going.
This is absolutely critical. So many transformations fizzle out after the initial launch. Sustainability is key. Transformation is not finished when the technology goes live. It's really just the beginning of a continuous journey.
So how do organizations actually keep that momentum going long after the initial rollout fanfare has died down?
Well, post-implementation, you have to relentlessly monitor key metrics. Keep tracking tool adoption rates. Keep tracking compliance with the new policies. Monitor supplier performance on the new platforms. Track efficiency improvements. Usually this is done through dashboards and predefined KPIs. You also need to establish robust feedback loops, constantly gather input from users, from suppliers, and use that feedback to refine the processes and systems. Continuous improvement. The source also recommends periodically reassessing your procurement maturity, maybe annually. Benchmark your progress against where you started and against industry peers. And crucially, keep investing in ongoing upskilling for your team. Think about emerging areas like AI-driven analytics, fostering supplier innovation, advanced collaborative sourcing techniques. Stay agile. Keep piloting emerging solutions, whether that's blockchain for supply chain transparency or maybe cognitive sourcing assistance. Keep evolving.
So the ultimate goal here isn't just implementing tools. It's building a procurement function that's genuinely adaptive, driven by insights, and can continuously deliver value back to the business.
Exactly. It becomes a function that can sense changes in the market, react quickly, and proactively find new ways to create impact.
And the industrial manufacturer case study in the source really shows the tangible payoff of sustaining this focus, doesn't it?
It really does. They implemented AI-driven spend analytics, which is great, but they didn't stop there. They built dashboards that provided ongoing, real-time visibility into things like tail spend, that long tail of small, often unmanaged purchases and price variance across different business units. This continuous monitoring and insight generation directly led them to renegotiate 20 key supplier contracts, resulting in $8 million in documented savings. And importantly, they started providing concise monthly insights derived from this data directly to the executive board. That significantly elevated procurement's strategic profile within the company. They became advisors. The toolkit tip here really hammers it home. Treat this as ongoing, benchmark annually, and continuously evolve your capabilities alongside technology trends.
Now, the source also touches on something else I found really fascinating. This idea of procurement becoming a strategic integrator, embedding itself beyond its own functional silo.
Yes, this is about moving beyond just optimizing procurement itself and connecting it as a critical component within larger company-wide initiatives, integrating tightly with other core departments like HR and finance. The source actually calls this a unified project procurement framework. It highlights specific touch points where this integration needs to happen. With finance, for instance, it's about integrating on budget planning, automating invoice matching, maybe managing CapEx-OpEx allocation more effectively through shared data. With HR, it involves collaboratively defining the new digital roles needed within procurement, clarifying decision rights, the source mentions using a AAA matrix, which maps who's accountable, who approves, who acts very clear roles, and developing competency-based training plans that are directly aligned with those new digital role profiles.
And what were the results of putting this kind of deep cross-functional integration framework in place?
The source cites some pretty impressive outcomes. Strategic sourcing coverage, the percentage of spend managed through strategic processes, jumped dramatically from 52% to 87%. Invoice resolution time, how long it takes to fix invoice problems, plummeted from 19 days down to just 5 days. Huge efficiency gain. Procurement budget variance, the difference between plan and actual spend, was slashed from 18% down to a much tighter 6%. And as a testament to that HR integration piece, 100% of the relevant staff were trained and formally certified in their new digital role profiles. It really demonstrates how connecting procurement digitally and strategically across the business drives serious, measurable improvements in core business metrics.
Okay, that's powerful. But of course, undertaking the scale of transformation, well, it's never entirely smooth sailing, is it? The source is practical and lists common obstacles.
Yes, absolutely. And crucially, it doesn't just list the problems. It provides clear mitigation strategies for each one. This is where the real practical value comes in, because these are challenges everyone faces in organizational change. Let's maybe walk through them. The first big one, resistance to change. Almost inevitable.
Right. What's the typical root cause the source identifies for that resistance?
Often, it boils down to fear. Fear for job security as automation increases. Or maybe just the discomfort and unfamiliarity with new tools and entirely new ways of working. Old habits die hard. The example given is senior buyers resisting a new AI-powered sourcing platform, perhaps feeling that their years of expertise are being devalued or replaced by an algorithm. The source suggests mitigating this by engaging stakeholders very early on. Frame the change not as a threat, but as an enabler, something that helps them do higher value work. Appoint those internal change champions we talked about, and constantly reinforce that key message. Automation replaces tasks, not people, freeing people up for strategy.
Okay, good mitigation points. Another huge one, especially in established companies, legacy systems and technical debt. Old tech holding you back.
Yeah, this is a massive challenge. You have these outdated systems, maybe decades old, that just don't talk to each other easily. They weren't built for integration. The source uses a pretty vivid example, a 20-year-old ERP system that requires complex, expensive custom coding for every single new tool you try to connect. It creates this continuous patchwork and spaghetti code nightmare. Mitigation strategies. Well, start with a thorough digital systems audit. Really understand what you have. Then, prioritize interoperability when selecting any new vendors or platforms. Look for modular, API-first solutions where possible, or, as a transitional step, you might need to use middleware or build data lakes to act as bridges between the old and new systems.
Right. What about when the problem isn't the tech, but the leadership? It's lack of executive buy-in or understanding.
This happens more often than you'd think. Leaders might conceptually support digital, but perhaps think transformation is just about purchasing some new software, and they miss the crucial process, people, and cultural elements. The source gives that classic example of an executive saying, "Oh yeah, we're transforming, we just bought a new ERP system," while completely overlooking the necessary changes in workflows, skills development, and changing the underlying culture. How to mitigate this? You need to actively educate executives. Use tailored briefings. Show them the results from that initial maturity assessment. Crucially, tie the digital outcomes directly to the key business KPIs that they care about: EBITDA, working capital, market share, and get them involved. Include senior leaders in the governance structures, like the Transformation Steering Committee. Make them part of the journey.
Okay. Then there's the flip side. The team itself isn't quite ready. The skills gap and organizational readiness issue.
Yes, this is another critical hurdle. Your transformation can completely stall if the teams who need to use the new systems lack the necessary digital literacy or the analytical thinking skills required, or maybe just the collaborative mindset needed for new integrated ways of working. The example provided is a sourcing team still stubbornly requesting quotes via email, even after a sophisticated e-sourcing platform has been implemented. Why? Often it's just because they lack the confidence or the training to use the new tool effectively. Mitigation here involves first doing a digital competency gap analysis, understand where the skill gaps are, then develop targeted, role-specific training programs like that Digital Procurement Academy example, and actively encourage cross-functional learning and collaboration.
Got it. And the final obstacle listed is a potentially self-inflicted one. Over-engineering.
Yeah.
Trying to do too much too perfectly.
Exactly. This is the trap of designing overly complex plans, aiming for these massive, perfect, big bang go lives, often with rigid, inflexible structures that don't allow for learning or adaptation. The source gives a cautionary tale, delaying a system launch by 18 months, trying to achieve perfect integration across dozens of systems, only to then face massive user resistance after launch because the design, created in isolation for so long, wasn't actually practical or user-centric in the real world. The mitigation here is really key for modern transformation. Start small. Use proofs of concept, run agile pilots in limited areas, embrace what the source calls a minimum viable transformation, MVT mindset. Get the core functionality delivering some value quickly, then iterate. Embrace iteration. Actively seek and incorporate user feedback and measure the value you deliver incrementally, rather than waiting for some theoretical perfection way down the road. The summary table for these obstacles in the source document is incredibly helpful. It really boils down the likely root cause and a high-level solution or mitigation strategy for each one, and it just underscores that critical point again. Success and transformation, even in a technical area like procurement, so often comes down to effectively managing the people, the culture, and the expectations, maybe even more than just installing the technology itself. By anticipating these common hurdles and having strategies ready to address them, organizations can significantly accelerate their digital evolution and avoid getting bogged down.
Right. That's really practical advice. So, okay, bringing this all together now, what are the main sort of headline takeaways from this deep dive into the source material on procurement transformation?
Well, the source gives us that very clear, actionable 5-step roadmap, which is invaluable. Assess readiness first, then build the business case, define the roadmap carefully, mobilize the organization and especially the people, and finally, scale and sustain the effort over the long term. But I think the really powerful core message, the thing that resonates most strongly, is that digital transformation, particularly in procurement, is just so much more than the tools and the tech. It's fundamentally a strategic journey. And perhaps most importantly, it's a profoundly human journey that reshapes the organization, its capabilities, and its culture from the inside out.
And as you said at the beginning, it really elevates the role of procurement itself within the business, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When it's approached strategically using this kind of framework, procurement stops being perceived as, just a cost center or a necessary administrative function. It truly becomes a strategic backbone for ensuring compliance, for driving supplier innovation, and for creating tangible, measurable value right across the entire enterprise. It becomes a strategic partner.
We've certainly covered a significant amount of ground today, digging into this detailed, structured roadmap for digital transformation, viewed specifically through that procurement lens.
It really does lay out all the different layers involved, doesn't it? From the big picture, the strategy, the cultural shift, right down to those very practical steps for building a business case, planning a phased rollout, or proactively dealing with those inevitable obstacles.
And you can definitely see how applying this kind of structured, holistic thinking isn't just limited to procurement. I mean, this framework seems incredibly valuable for understanding and maybe driving transformation in pretty much any area of a business, wouldn't you say?
I think so too. Which raises an important final question, maybe. The source leaves us with a really powerful thought, one that kind of sticks with you after you read it. It says, transforming procurement isn't a one-time project. It's a strategic evolution. And the organizations that treat it that way will lead while the rest will lag.
Lead while the rest will lag. Think about that for a moment, perhaps in your own context listening to this. Where in your work or maybe in your organization is that kind of evolution really needed right now? And what would it truly mean day to day to treat that needed change as a continuous journey, a constant evolution, not just another project with a start and an end date?
Yeah, consider how the principles we've discussed today, that essential blend of strategy, process, people, technology, and governance, or that proactive way of anticipating and mitigating obstacles, how might those apply directly to the challenges you're facing right now in trying to drive meaningful change?
Lots to think about there.
Yeah.
Keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and keep thinking about how these ideas connect with your own learning journey.